You walk into an empty house. The lights are on. Nothing is wrong. But the silence stops you at the door. Your shoulders tighten. Your ears strain for something. Anything. Why does quiet feel like a warning? You would think silence means safety. No danger, no noise, no threat. But your brain does not read it that way. Your brain reads silence as a question mark. And question marks, to an animal built for survival, are dangerous. Go back 200,000 years. You are standing at the edge of a grassland at dusk. Insects are humming. Birds are calling. Wind moves through the grass. This is the normal soundscape of your world. Then, without warning, it stops. Every insect goes quiet. Every bird goes still. What does that mean? It means something moved. Something big. Something with a reason to hide. The forest does not fall silent for no reason. It falls silent because a predator is passing through, and every creature smart enough to survive has learned to shut up and listen. The bioacoustics researcher Bernie Krause spent decades recording wild soundscapes around the world, and he documented this pattern again and again. A healthy ecosystem has a rich, layered hum of sound. Birds in one register, insects in another, wind and water underneath. When a predator enters the scene, that hum collapses into silence within seconds. Krause called this loss of natural sound biophony, going quiet, and he found it so consistent that experienced trackers use silence itself as a warning sign, the same way they would use a broken twig or a paw print. Your ancestors lived inside that same acoustic world for almost the entirety of human history. They did not have fences. They did not have locked doors. Their only early warning system was sound. A rustle meant something was near. A sudden hush meant something dangerous was near enough to make everything else go quiet first. So think about what that means for your brain today. You did not evolve in a world of silence. You evolved in a world of constant low background noise. And silence was the exception, the anomaly, the thing that meant pay attention now. This is why an empty, silent house feels wrong even when you know it is safe. Your brain is not responding to your actual situation, it is responding to 200,000 years of pattern recognition, and that pattern says silence equals something is wrong. The behavioral ecologist Daniel Blumstein has spent his career studying vigilance in animals, from marmots to humans, and one of his central findings is that all social animals constantly calculate risk based on ambient cues, and unexpected silence ranks among the strongest of those cues. Blumstein's research on what ecologists call the landscape of fear shows that animals do not need to see a predator to feel afraid. They only need the soundscape to change in a way that suggests one might be near. Fear, in other words, is often a prediction, not a reaction. You do this constantly without realizing it. Notice how a quiet office feels different from a quiet forest. Notice how a silent phone call feels different from a silent room. Your brain is not evaluating the silence in isolation. It is comparing it to the pattern it expects, and any break from that pattern gets flagged as a potential threat, whether the threat is real or not. Here is where it gets stranger. This ancient alarm system did not stay in the wild. It moved with you into cities, into offices, into relationships, and now it fires when your phone stops buzzing for a whole day, or when a friend who normally texts constantly suddenly goes quiet, or when a conversation you were expecting simply never happens. Have you ever felt more anxious about someone not texting back than about what they might have actually said? That is not a coincidence. That is the same silence detector still running the same code it ran on the savannah. Except now the predator it is scanning for is rejection, abandonment, or conflict instead of a lion in the grass. The neuroendocrinologist Robert Sapolsky has spent much of his research career studying how stress responses evolved for physical threats and now activate for psychological ones. His work explains why silence in a relationship or a workplace can trigger the exact same stress hormones as a genuine physical threat would have triggered in your ancestors. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a predator in the grass and a boss who has gone quiet after your last email. Both register as the same category of danger, an absence of information in a situation where information used to mean survival. This is why unanswered messages feel unbearable to some people. This is why a silent room during an argument feels worse than the argument itself. Silence is not neutral to your nervous system. It is a vacuum, and your brain rushes to fill that vacuum with the worst possible explanation because for most of human history, the worst possible explanation was usually the correct one. But here is the twist. Not all silence triggered fear for your ancestors. Some silence meant something else entirely, and understanding the difference tells you a lot about why modern quiet still confuses your body. Silence at night, once you were safely inside a group, around a fire, surrounded by people you trusted, was not dangerous. It was restorative. Group silence, shared silence, was actually a signal of safety because it meant everyone around you had also relaxed their vigilance at the same time. You could not fully rest unless the people near you were resting too. This is why silence alone can feel threatening, while silence with someone you trust, lying next to a partner, sitting quietly with an old friend, can feel like the safest thing in the world. The silence has not changed, your nervous system's read on your social context has. So the real question is never simply, is it quiet? The real question your brain is unconsciously asking is this quiet expected? And am I alone in it? Expected quiet, shared quiet, register as safety. Sudden quiet, isolated quiet, register as danger, no matter how modern and safe your actual environment happens to be. Once you understand this, a lot of your own behavior starts to make sense. You reach for your phone in a silent elevator, not because you need to check anything, but because your brain wants a signal that the world outside is still functioning. You turn on music or a podcast while doing chores alone, not out of boredom, but to keep your ancient alarm system from misfiring the moment the apartment goes quiet. You are not broken for feeling uneasy in silence. You are running an inheritance, a system built by ancestors who survived specifically because they treated sudden quiet as information worth acting on. The ones who ignored it did not get the chance to pass that indifference down. And maybe that reframes something. The next time silence makes your chest tighten, in an empty house, in an unanswered text thread, in a pause during a difficult conversation, you can recognize it for what it actually is. Not proof that something is wrong. Just an old alarm ringing in a world that no longer has lions in the grass, still doing the only job it has ever known how to do, keeping you listening. So the next time you walk into an empty house and the silence stops you at the door, you will know exactly what is happening. It is not the house that is dangerous. It is 200,000 years of your ancestors still listening through you.